Om Namo Baghavathe Shri Ramanaya. Hari Om. Today we are going to reflect on meditation and what Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi has said about meditation and one of the techniques which he has recommended as well. Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi says meditation is our true nature. If meditation is our true nature, then the question arises, why do we have to call it meditation? Why do we have to give it another name? So for that, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi says, it is because we are so busy with so many other thoughts, and because of that, we don't abide in ourselves. Now, we have to get rid of all these other thoughts. We have to keep away all these thoughts. And now we have started calling this keeping away the other thoughts as meditation. But what he says is, when you try and keep away all other thoughts, then meditation happens, meaning your true self emerges and you abide in that. So, in a way, what you can say is abiding in the self is what you call meditation. Abiding on anything other than self is what you call all the thoughts, disturbances, etc. So, then the question arises, when you try to sit in at meditation, many thoughts come to distract us, disturb us. When I say many thoughts, it's more thoughts, especially when I sit for meditation. Usually when you are going about, the rate of thoughts is X. When you sit in for meditation, the rate of thoughts will double, triple, and you start thinking about things which you wouldn't have even imagined about. Sometimes so many negative thoughts, etc. And what happens is, when there is such a gush of thoughts, and when such negativity surfaces, we do get discouraged. And the tendency is to give up meditation. Here again, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi says, of course they will come, because those thoughts are there at a deeper level. You have to bring it to surface. Without bringing them to surface, how can you destroy them? So therefore, we should not worry and we should not get scared when there is such a gush of thoughts. What we need to do is to persist with it. The initial stages of meditation is exactly for that. Bring what is there at a deeper level. All these thoughts in the unmanifest forms, technically they are called vasanas. They are in us in unmanifest form, and they are waiting to come out. Now this process of meditation during the initial stages, what we are doing is we are fast tracking the manifestation of these unmanifest thoughts. So you bring it to the surface. So then question arises, what do you do when you bring it to the surface? Then what you do is You don't do anything with them. You just ignore them. So you may ask, so if the thoughts come and if I ignore, if that is the only thing which has to be done, why do I have to sit in meditation? The answer for that is, if you don't sit in at meditation and when you go about your normal life, these unmanifest thoughts will become manifest, but at their own time. It may take days, months, years, sometimes it may take many a lifetime for these thoughts to manifest. And when they manifest, we may be caught off guard. So instead of ignoring such thoughts, we may act on it. So here, in the name of meditation, in the initial stages, what we are doing is giving ourselves an opportunity to manifest all these unmanifest thoughts within us in a fast-tracked way, so that you can consciously ignore them. So you don't have to wait years and years, many a lifetime for them to manifest and then be caught off guard and act on it. Here we sit in meditation very consciously, deliberately, with the plan of ignoring every thought which manifests. So when such unmanifest thoughts manifest, in the initial stages of meditation, we keep on ignoring them. And these thoughts get destroyed. This is what you call exhaustion of vasanas, technically. So when we do that, when we fast track the exhaustion of vasanas without acting on them, without getting carried away, then what happens is this process of manifestation of thoughts slows down and comes almost to a standstill. Then the mind becomes quiet. There are no more thought agitations. When there are no more thought agitations, your attention doesn't go on anything. And when your attention doesn't go on anything, you are left with only yourself, not your body, not your mind, not your intellect, not the world, but your own self. And that is what you call the true meditation, where you are left with your own self, which is also known as being. So instead of being this or that, being this or that happens when I go on thinking, I'm this, I'm that, I'm so and so, I have to do this, I shouldn't do this, I like this, I dislike this. These are being something or the other. But when I arrest these thoughts, when I destroy these thoughts, when I'm thoughtless, I am no longer imagining myself as something or the other, where I have no imagination of myself as a finite entity, where I only exist and I am aware of my existence without the thoughts. No thoughts, yet I am conscious, I am aware. That is the awareness of myself. This is what the meditation is supposed to achieve. So that's why Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi says, meditation is your true self. And when you give up the thoughts about everything else, that is what you call meditation, and that is what you call your own self. Now, interestingly, in our traditional scriptures, they say the ignorance have to be removed for one to realize one's own self. So we need to be able to connect what these traditional scriptures say, where it says ignorance have to go to realize one's own self. And here Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi says, when you are free of thoughts, then you experience your own self, which is self-realization. So how do we connect these two? Interestingly, traditionally what is referred to as ignorance is nothing but our own thoughts about us. Because whenever we think of ourselves as I am this, I am that, definitely I am referring to some finite entity. It could be body, it could be mind, it could be intellect, it could be my personality, it could be my belongings, it could be anything of this world. So I am referring to finite entities. This is traditionally known as an Atma, not myself. But I am imagining that these are me. So the thoughts about me, it could be anything. Any thought about me is equal to ignorance. And when these thoughts are removed, that's what you call removal of ignorance. So in Atma Vichara, removal of ignorance is removal of thoughts. More thoughts, more ignorance. Less thoughts, less ignorance. No thoughts, no ignorance. So zero thoughts, no ignorance is self-realization. Interestingly, this is just opposite to the ignorance of anything worldly. When it comes to worldly matters, no thoughts about anything is ignorance. Thoughts about anything is knowledge. So when you have more thoughts about something, you say, I know about it a lot. When you have less thoughts about it, then you say, I know about it less. That means I'm ignorant about that. So when it comes to worldly matters, no thoughts is equal to ignorance, more thoughts is equal to knowledge. But when it comes to knowledge of the self, more thoughts is equal to more ignorance. Less thoughts is equal to less ignorance. No thoughts is equal to no ignorance. That is what you call knowledge of the self. So this is something which we need to deeply reflect on when we try to understand what is meditation and how meditation takes us to self-realization, and then be focused on getting rid of the thoughts. As we try to get rid of the thoughts, as we try to meditate, as I said, these unmanifest becoming manifest, the unmanifest thoughts, they try to become manifest. There will be an urge again and again to imagine about ourselves, to capture this self in thoughts. Again, we have to constantly remind ourselves, the purpose of meditation is not to capture the self in thoughts. It's the opposite. The purpose of meditation is to get rid of any thoughts about the self. And if you are focused on this, I should not entertain any thoughts whatsoever about anything, about the self also. Then we will start abiding in the self, and that is what you call self-realization. So, in short, not abiding in not self is actually abiding in the self. In the name of abiding in the self, we are not going to do anything else but stop abiding in what is not self, meaning entertaining any thoughts about anything. So, normally, if we look at our mind, the mind is full of thoughts. And as we discussed earlier, especially when we sit in for meditation, then there will be a gush of thoughts. Then someone may ask, for a beginner, how do we go from mind full of thoughts to a thoughtless stage? Is there a technique to do this? Of course, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi has given a very simple technique to do this. So, we will look at it in the next session as to what this technique is all about. Hari Om.